What's good, y'all? Welcome to 7 Series Football, where we optimize for realism, efficacy, and immersion in college football 26. My name is Justin, and in today's video, we'll be continuing our discussion on building an elite wide receiver room. Before we get into it, there is a couple things that I want to communicate to you guys. Firstly, thank you so much for the support and the turnout on the last video. Never in a million years did I expect to get 1,000 views that fast. So huge shout out to y'all boys. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Secondly, if you haven't seen part 1 of the wide receiver series, I highly suggest that you go back and watch it. It'll do a lot to help contextualize everything that we'll be discussing later on in the video. Thirdly, your boy just started Invisalign, so if you hear me talking a little differently over the next couple months, that's why. What can I say? I'm trying to get cute out here. Then lastly, I just want to give you the framework for the discussion that we're about to have. The perspective that I'm speaking from is like a 3.5 star, 4-star school. So if you're at a different level, higher or lower, just scale the numbers up or down to match your situation. And secondly, when it comes to progression, I'm operating under the understanding that all of these archetypes progress pretty much the same way when it comes to hands, route running, and like ball carrier moves, juke, elusiveness, all of that. All of those are fairly cheap to upgrade, and it's not more expensive for one archetype compared to any of the others. They're all about the same. And so when it comes to developing those skills, route running, hands, and like rack attributes, it's pretty much universal. All of the archetypes pretty much have the ability to get there, given that that particular player doesn't have, crazy stat caps. So that said, the main differentiator between all of the archetypes is going to be their starting point, both athletically and like where their skills come in, and then their ability stack. Those are going to be the two drivers and differentiators of all the archetypes, and that's going to be like I said, the main driver of how we end up ranking them. So without further ado, that's enough yapping for me. Let's go ahead and get into the video. Last video, we started off with the X, so we'll do the same here. If you remember, that's going to be our big body guy lined up on the line of scrimmage, often into the boundary. And his main responsibilities are going to be beating press off the line of scrimmage, winning in tight spaces in the short and intermediate area, and then dominating in contested situations down the field. And coming in at number 1 for this role is going to be the physical route runner. So firstly, they have a pretty solid athletic base. I wouldn't say it's elite. They're typically pretty big, anywhere between 5'11" and then 6'3", 6'4", sometimes even 6'5". And they come in with decent speed, decent route running, just decent all the way around. But they typically have a bit better than average release and hands. But even more important than their physicality and their attributes, they have really a perfect ability stack for playing X receiver. We said that X's need to be able to get off the line of scrimmage and beat press. They've got Press Pro. They can excel at that. We said X's need to be able to reliably win in one-on-one, especially in tight spaces. They got Cutter. They can do that too. Then when it comes to contested situations, they can excel at that as well, whether that be down the field with 50-50 or, in the short to intermediate area, moving the chains with the sure hands. And then as if that wasn't enough, they also get downhill to, supplement their run after catch ability. So again, a perfectly suited ability stack for all of the main parts of playing X receiver. So they're going to slot in at number 1 here. Coming in at number 2, we are going to have our contested specialist. And being that they're both playing X, it's going to be pretty similar to the physical route runner, but with one key difference. And I would sum that up by saying that physical route runners are more skill-based, where contested specialists mainly dominate with their athleticism. And I'll give you guys a concrete real-life example to kind of flesh out this idea. DeAndre Hopkins in his prime was a physical route runner. He was physically and athletically imposing, but he was a really good route runner, had amazing hands, and overall was a technician when it came to his craft of being an outside wide receiver. On the other end of the spectrum, we had Des Bryant in the league at the same time. And while he was fine at the, craft parts of being a receiver, he was a fine route runner. He had better than average hands. Everybody knew that Des' superpower, the focus of his game, was dominating you physically at the line of scrimmage, in open space, or at the catch point. He took many a slant to the end zone, caught an unreasonable amount of back shoulder fades, and I think that really sums up the difference between these two archetypes here. Physical route runners are going to be a bit more all around and refined as far as their skills go, whereas contested specialists are more athletically gifted and dominant. Speaking of their athletic gifts, they're typically going to come in anywhere in between 6'1", 6'6", and they come in with decent speed too, anywhere from the mid to high 80s, which is, like I said, decent. It's also not rare for them to come in with really, really solid hands, especially spec catch. I would say 85 spec catch is like pretty common for, your 4 or 5 star contested specialist. And that brings us to the ability stack. Obviously, being contested specialists, they were going to get 50-50. But if you look at it, that's literally the only receiving focused ability that they do get. And that's not to minimize the other abilities. They can be very valuable. I've turned many a slant or drag into chunk plays because of those abilities, specifically downhill. However, in the context of building a wide receiver room and building a wide receiver prospect, I think we should be much more concerned with their ability to get open and catch the ball than with what they're able to do after they catch the ball. And so their ability stack is going to be really the main reason that I rank physical route runner ahead of contested specialist. And really, these two are the only archetypes that I would really recommend you running at your X, save for one very specific situation that we'll get to at the end. But I also will give you kind of like a third option if you ever find yourself in a recruiting or team building pinch. And so the honorable mention, if you will, for the X position is going to be a two-way tie between speedster and route artist. I'm not going to get too into detail on these archetypes right now because I'm going to save them for the next section. But a speedster at X will still give you the ability to threaten vertically down the field, although he's probably going to lack in some of the other core X responsibilities. Then the route artist can step in and fill some of those responsibilities like catching in traffic and winning one-on-one, but obviously they're going to struggle to threaten the field vertically in that same way. So that'll do it for our X receiver. Coming in at number 1, we've got physical route runner. Number 2, contested specialist. And then in a pinch, I would go with either a speedster or a route artist. Which then brings us to our Z receiver. If you remember from our last video, this is typically going to be our field side receiver as opposed to being lined up into the boundary. And they're also typically off the line of scrimmage as opposed to on the line of scrimmage. This allows them to dodge press coverage, but also move in motion, allowing them to be moved around before the snap, moved in and out of the slot, build up some momentum before the snap, etc., etc. And like we mentioned in part one, there are really two paths to success here. Either you are a vertical threat like Tyreek Hill on the Chiefs or prime Deshaun Jackson, or you're a bit more agility and route running focused like a Chris Olave or Chris Godwin to Mike Evans' ex down in Tampa. As such, route artist and speedster are going to come in at 1A and 1B when it comes to filling the Z receiver responsibilities. We're going to start with my personal favorite. That's going to be the route artist. And these are my favorite because they are just professional wide receivers. What do I mean by that? If you were to explain to somebody what the job of a wide receiver was, like take X and Z and all that out of it, just a wide receiver, if you were to explain that to somebody who had no knowledge of football, undoubtedly you would say that running routes and catching were the two most important roles or responsibilities for that job. And route artists are nothing short of proficient when it comes to those two tasks. And this is going to be most pronounced in their ability stack. They get both cutter and double dip, which means that on each and every route that you send them out on, as long as it's not a bubble or a now screen, they have an ability that will trigger, that will amplify their ability to win one-on-one. Again, they are proficient route runners. Then they also get both sure hands and layout. Sure hands is going to amplify their ability to hold on to the ball in short area contested situations. So basically anything that's not going to be a jump ball down the field. And then layout increases the chances that they will successfully haul in catches towards the edge of their catch radius, which also makes them proficient pass catchers. And overall, the tandem of proficient route running and hands makes them professional grade wide receivers. Now, EA isn't just going to give us a do-it-all archetype. So we have to talk about the drawbacks of the route artist. And that drawback is their extremely lackluster athletic package. I'd actually go as far as to say they probably have the worst athletic package of all the receiver archetypes. If not, it's the second worst. Firstly, they're not very big, which isn't the end of the world, but they're definitely on the smaller side. These are going to range anywhere from like 5'7", 5'8", up to like max 6'2". I think that's probably the tallest route artist that I've seen thus far. And again, that's not the end of the world, except for the fact that route artists also come in with very underwhelming speed. I'm talking low to mid 80s consistently. And for me, anything 87 and below is essentially unplayable in a power forward context. So that speed baseline is very problematic. All that to say, if you find a route artist recruit that's coming in with 88, 89 speed, take him. You have all the potential in the world for him to dominate. If you come across a route artist that has speed lower than that, either don't recruit them, especially if it's like 82, 83, like I'm not touching it. But 85, 86, 87, you can accept, but just know that you're probably going to have to use a redshirt season for him to get up to par athletically. Which then brings us to the speedster, who definitely doesn't have this problem. Their speed coming in is typically playable and beyond, honestly. That talking 89 to 93 being the norm. As a matter of fact, in my main Dynasty, this past recruiting class, there was a 5-star receiver that came in with 99 speed out of the gate. There are definitely still some that come in like 87 speed and below, especially like 3 and 2 stars. But my friends and I don't call those speedsters, we call those liars. All that to say, they come in pretty fast, hence the name. But despite the name, when it comes to their actual skills, they're actually surprisingly adequate. Their deep route running is typically pretty good. Like 83, 84 is not uncommon at all. They have really solid hands. Their short to medium route running isn't the best, but they typically have playable releases out of the gate, like, high 70s, low 80s, which, again, is a really solid starting point. But I feel like the speedster kind of falls apart when it comes to their ability stack. And you might hear that and think I'm crazy, but let me explain. Yes, takeoff is amazing. Honestly, it's probably the best offensive ability in the entire game. But there's only one other ability that applies to route running or catching, and that's double dip. Double dip is fine, but it doesn't trigger nearly enough for it to justify this being the only other ability that applies to playing wide receiver. Shifty and sidestep are definitely nice. They're like very viable abilities, but again, this is a wide receiver and not a running back. And even further, if this is like a deep threat type wide receiver, who is he juking anyway? Like, if he's running go routes or deep posts, he should be running into the end zone like it's a track meet, not doing anything horizontally. And I don't say that to like pigeonhole the receiver. Like, being able to create after a catch is fine, but I just don't feel like these abilities really match the attributes, and they don't maximize the ceiling of this archetype. It's like they gave us takeoff and it's like, that's enough. Regardless though, speedster has all the potential in the world to really dominate as a Z receiver. Consistently being lined up off the ball plus takeoff is a really, really, really dangerous combo. Like, if you get takeoff on platinum on a Z receiver, it can be game breaking. Like, 2,000 yard season is like easy to come by. So it's really powerful, hence why I didn't feel comfortable putting it at number 2, and it's gonna come in at 1B for me when it comes to playing Z receiver. Coming in at number 2, or I guess 3 for your Z, is gonna be the Gadget. And they come in pretty decent. Their speed is solid. I would say anything from like 87 up to like 90, 91 is like within the common range. They come in with like okay hands, not great, but 80s, high 70s. But they are pretty good horizontal athletes. They got good COD, solid juke, agility is typically really good. But there are just a couple of insane pitfalls that come with this archetype, and mainly linked to their ability. They get extender and dot, which are both quarterback abilities. And like, just right off the bat, I'm not building my Z receiver to play quarterback, so those are essentially wasted. But then cutter is the only actual receiver ability, which I understand, like, this is supposed to be like a Tavon Austin type archetype, so shifty and sidestep make perfect sense. Again, I'm just not building my Z receiver around this skill set. Their attributes can develop just fine like everybody else, but yeah, I'm not rocking with these personally. Which brings us to our F, or our slot. As we mentioned in the first video, it's possible to win in multiple ways from the slot. So I'll give you guys my rankings here, but this is ultimately going to come down to how you use your slot. At number 1, I'd say route artists, just because of their ability set. They're kind of scheme proof. They can do pretty much anything you need them to do. They can dominate against zones. If you upgrade their speed, they can stretch the field vertically. And then they obviously can fry linebackers and nickel corners from their slot position. Coming in at number 2, I would go ahead and say speedster again. Takeoff from the slot is just really powerful, and if you take advantage of it, you know can eat up a lot of yards for free, as well as remain viable to contribute in other ways. Then coming in at number 3 is actually going to be physical route runner again for me. And I think of this like Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb type of slot receiver, that's, has no fear working across the middle of the field. It's not easy to tackle once they get it, but not lacking at all when it comes to their ability to route up and, catch the ball down the field and across the middle of the field. Now, if you're familiar with the game, you may have noticed that there are a couple of archetypes that I have not mentioned yet. We'll start with the Elusive route runner, and we'll be quick about it. It's kind of like a mixture of route artist and Gadget, I would say. They get movement abilities, they get sidestep and 360, the spin move ability. But they also get cutter and double dip, which are both route running abilities. Obviously, they're useful. Recoup is kind of a waste, but, it's decent, I guess. But the fatal flaw with this archetype is that they can never upgrade their catch and traffic, and they typically come in with really low catch and traffic. Like, there are a ton of instances, especially with 3 and 4 stars, where you are stuck with receivers whose catching traffic will never go above a 71 or a 74. Like, the starting point is bad enough, but not being able to upgrade it essentially renders this archetype unplayable for me. Like, I cannot stand for you dropping drags. I cannot stand for you dropping curl routes or slants or dropping any of my balls down the field because you won't work on your catching traffic. Like, not to anthropomorphize the game, but at the same time, I just can't tolerate that. And so I refuse to consistently recruit and develop these players. If there's a 5-star that's interested in me, I'll take it. Like, I have one on my team and he's been really good, but I cannot tolerate catching traffic that will never improve, and thus I will never build any of my receivers around this archetype if I can resist it. And that'll bring us to gritty possession. And I think this is a really interesting archetype, but only in very specific situations. Now, when it comes to athletic package, they and the route artist are both garbage, like pure trash. The route artists are short, weak, and slow. Gritty possessions are tall, strong, and slow. But like I said, because of their abilities, they do have some interesting potential, but only if you run a very ground and pound, smash mouth style of football. First and foremost, unless you're just blessed with having it out of the gate, you'll probably never get outside shield. It starts off too low for you to feasibly get it up to where you can start to activate the ability. Then from there, strong grip, second level, and workhorse all require power upgrades, which, like we established, are very, very expensive. So it's going to be a lot of skill points to get those too. But if you get them, a gritty possession can change your offense. This makes the perimeter screen game dominant. This makes your run game dominant because you essentially have an additional offensive lineman or pure blocking tight end that's split out wide and can come and help out. Then they also still get sure hands, so they can be reliable chain movers on top of their blocking assets. like I said, if you run a scheme that maximizes them, gritty possessions can be really nice, especially if you find one with speed. But I would say this essentially is all contingent on you getting one that has elite dev and leaving him at wide receiver as opposed to moving him to tight end, which I admittedly tend to do if I come across one. For our X receiver, it's going to go physical route runner, contested specialist, and then a two-way tie between speedster and route runner if you need them. For our Z, I have route artist 1A and speedster 1B because it's mostly a stylistic difference there. And then Gadget is going to be our honorable mention. Then for the F, I have route artist, speedster, followed by physical route runner coming in third. Elusive route runner is garbage, and gritty possession, they're just too scheme dependent to be, super reliable and viable. All right, so that is going to be it for the wide receiver series. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my rankings? Do you disagree? Do y'all use elusive route runner or gritty possession? Let me know, and we'll see if y'all change my mind. If you made it this far in the video, please drop a like. If you learned anything, go ahead, drop a like. And if you think you know anybody who will be interested in content like this, please share it with them. That'd be greatly appreciated. We definitely want to keep the community growing. And if you like what you saw today, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll always be around whenever we drop something new. As far as next video goes, I'm thinking either something playbook focused, a lot of y'all have mentioned that, or we might replicate this discussion but for the secondary. So identifying the roles in the secondary and then ranking the archetypes according to each role. I think that'd be fun. That's a passion of mine. But we'll definitely keep the film studies going. I got a lot of game tape to analyze and share with y'all, so definitely be on the lookout for that. Other than that, thank y'all again for y'all time. I'll definitely see you in the next one. We'll be around. But until then, peace.